Hey everyone, Justin here with JKS Manufacturing. I'm down here in our R&D facility in Coldwater, Michigan, and we're here to look at an exciting new product for JKS J-Spec suspension systems, an upgrade to your Jeep in both ride, drive, performance, kind of every aspect. You know, a possible upgrade for your Jeep, and it's a new Fox product. So anytime we're talking about a Fox product, we're obviously talking about some serious performance. So let's take a look at why we might upgrade and what that upgrade might entail. So this current R&D Jeep is in our base level suspension system. It's got a J-Spec shock on it, which is very similar to your OE shock. It's a twin tube, kind of a lower performance design. The J-Spec shock is actually very good when we're talking about that entry-level lifted Jeep, off-road shock. It's an 1 7/8" bore. The lengths are correct, meaning we're going to get the correct wheel travel, and it is tuned for a dual rate coil spring. So it is a decent shock in its own right. But if we want a little bit more performance, we've lifted our Jeep, we've now experienced some off-road, maybe we put some bigger tires on it, of course, because we lifted it. Now we need a shock that's going to control all those movements a little bit more. We call those events. You have big events and small events, big whoops, large potholes. These are large events. We need a shock that is going to absorb that a little bit better. It's built for that type of activity, and more importantly, it's tuned for the heavier wheel and tire combo that we're running. We're talking about 37-inch tires on 17-inch wheels, maybe some beadlocks. That is a heavy wheel and tire combo. A shock that is tuned and designed based on a 32 or 33 or even sometimes a 35 could always use a little bit of tweaking to control that movement on that bigger wheel and tire combo. So what we're looking at here is a 2.5 Performance Series shock. That is a big shock. We're starting to get into some high performance racing shocks, and let's talk about what that is and what that means. When we talk about 2.0 and 2.5 and 1 7/8" and things, what we're talking about is the actual piston size in the shock. The larger the piston, the more fluid capacity, the more tuning we can do with that shock. So this is a 2.0 piston, and it's pretty big, and there's a lot of room and a lot of tuning that can be done there. But now let's talk about a 2.5. Much bigger, obviously, just based on math, it's bigger, but all these orifices and everything is much, much larger, allowing much more fluid to move through, which means we can fine-tune compression and damping much better. So we start talking about rebound, and we start talking about compression. These are things that you tune into a shock that kind of take it from a generic tune that this works on a Jeep to this works on a J-Spec dual rate spring 37-inch tire Jeep. That's all the fine tuning. That's months and months of R&D time. That's tens of thousands of miles. That's changing these shims hundreds and hundreds of times. Let's get in here and take a look at these shims. We always talk about custom tuning, shocks. That's what it is. It's piston design and changing around the stack of these shims. So let's talk about shock tuning and, more importantly, shims for a moment. Now, this is a random shock. It's that I tore apart. It's a Fox. It's an IFP, internal floating piston shock. We're talking about a shim stack. So you're going to have on either side of the piston, 2.0 or 2.5 or 3.0 or even the J-Spec shock, on either side of the piston you're going to have a shim stack. One side's going to control compression, the other side's going to control rebound. So basically compression is obviously upward movement, compressing, and rebound is downward movement. Both of those are extremely important to ride quality and how you want to enjoy your Jeep. And in some cases that's where we get into those DSC tuners where we can tune on the compression. But for this purpose, let's just look. Shims are different diameters, they're different thicknesses, and they're usually stacked, well, sometimes stacked in a pyramid, basically smallest to largest, largest to smallest. And what they do is as fluid pushes against them, they bend. And they bend and allow fluid to pass through the piston. And so their diameter, their thickness, and their stack determines how much fluid moves past at what time. So basically the whole thing is a controlled fluid leak through the piston. That's how we damp those movements, both compression and rebound, speed things up, slow things down. Now, as modern tuning and things have developed, we start seeing flutter stacks where you see we're small shims up to large shims, then all of a sudden back to small shims again, and then up to large shims again. And then we got some bleeds here. So this is just some of that R&D that through the years Fox has put in, that race-winning technology, those race-winning tunes This is the stuff that is trickled down to your Jeep, and this is the stuff that we use to tune these 2.5 Performance Series shocks, dial them right into that J-Spec suspension system. Most importantly, that dual rate spring, the amount of wheel travel that spring allows. We maximize all of those things, and then we take into effect the weight of that 37-inch tire, how you're gonna drive it. So things like fire roads and sand dunes and, you know, Michigan potholed roads, all that becomes much more manageable with this finely tuned shock. So we've talked about the tuning benefits and the increased piston size. Now let's talk about the shock itself, right? The shock as a whole. So we got this large aluminum 2.5-inch body. So this body is huge. It'll hold this 2.5-inch piston. So that's gonna do a couple of things. One, it's gonna hold more fluid than a smaller diameter shock. Just like many, many things on your Jeep, the hotter fluid gets, the less that product performs. Shocks are very susceptible to fade and not hitting that peak performance when the fluid gets hot. So the more fluid we get in there, the more fluid we have to dissipate heat. Speaking of dissipating heat, not too many things do it better than aluminum, so that's why you have a large extruded aluminum body right here. So, you know, again, a complete package. This has got a large diameter shock shaft. When you compare that to a factory style shock, again, the longer the shock, the more stresses are put on that shaft, and you know, we can, you know, kind of get away from bending and things like that as we extend the shock. Another thing to look at here on the rear, that shock shaft catches a lot of dirt, and dirt is not necessarily great for oil seals and things like that. Now the shaft is hardened, but we really like to keep some dirt out of all those redundant oil seals. So we got this awesome roost guard here, nice Fox logo on it, so it looks really cool. But the functionality is even more important because, again, it's protecting those rocks and debris getting thrown off your front tires now that you can haul butt down those fire roads from hitting that rear shock shaft and destroying it. So really, the overall package from Fox, you know, you got the large diameter aluminum, so we're dissipating heat with extra fluid. We're protecting that shock shaft from all the dirt. We just got a great package to really increase the performance of your Jeep. So if you're interested in a set of these shocks, of course, you can always go to one of our fantastic dealers and get them put on, but also you can do that right at home. You need an 18 millimeter wrench, maybe an 18 millimeter socket, one of each. We got 18 millimeter top and bottom. These JLs made changing shocks really, really easy. Just a little plastic guard comes out in the rear, in the front, nothing needs to come out. Top and bottom, slip them on, no big deal. So install is really quick and easy. Take a look at this. You know, if you have questions, let us know. And, you know, as always, follow along at jksmfg.com, you know, to take a look at these parts, and our social media feeds at Facebook, JKSMFG, and of course, Instagram as well. Let us know what you think. You know, shoot us any questions, and we'll see you on the trail.